my patient, I see you once a year, and you're asking that question, I would say fat is one of 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And fats have, in the 80s, we were pushing low-fat diet, low-fat everything. Labels, even if it didn't have fat, candy would be low-fat, just for you to look at the label. So what did it get us? It got us an obesity epidemic in the millennium. So going low-fat made most people take in high carbohydrate. You can't really go high protein with a certain food. So if you have low-fat in your diet, the other 2 have to come up. It's those 3 things: fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So I'm going to leave it with Tom as far as the details, but I think there are healthy fats that you have to have. Unhealthy fats or saturated fats are a no-no. You're on your way. I mean, it tastes great. I remember the taste of steak. I haven't eaten steak in a long time, but I remember I used to have, in fact, my dad and I used to eat the gristle and the fat part when my sister didn't want it. And oh, it was so yummy and salty. It got us both into trouble. But again, having a feast once a year versus eating that gristle every weekend. So I think fat is important. It's important for, if you don't eat fat, if you're a vegetarian, I would say then you should supplement with capsules or omega-3 fish oil. Krill oil, in my opinion, is great, especially if you're trying to lower cholesterol, but it's pricey. If you look at krill versus fish oil, there's a lot of pretty decent brands of fish oil that are checking their product for mercury content, and they're pretty good, and at 1/3 the price. So there has to be, in my opinion, there has to be fat in the diet. It decreases depression possibilities, it decreases cholesterol levels, it makes the blood nice and slippery, it helps with arthritis. There is a necessity for fat in the diet. As far as how much,
we go by percentage of calories. So generally we're in the 25 to 30% of calories. So that means for a person on a 1,800 calorie diet, that's going to be about 35 to 40 grams of fat total per day. If we're talking about a college athlete who's consuming 3,000 or 4,000 calories, it's going to be closer to 100 grams of fat a day. But balance, basically, it comes down to balance. But I would say 35 is probably still considered a low-fat diet, and you're still getting enough fat to where you're getting what you need. The key point is not how much fat, whether it's 35 or 45, it's the quality of the fat. I'd far rather see 30 grams of high-quality fat than 40 or 20 grams of the junk fats.
And yeah, that also brings into mind coconut. There was a big push for coconut last spring. Everybody was talking about coconut oil, Dr. Roz for coconut oil, which is healthy, but it's high in fats. So, although it's healthy,
I thought saturated fats only came from animals.
Generally speaking, saturated fats are going to be higher in animal products, but any fat that's solid at room temperature is generally going to be saturated. So there's very few plants that do produce a lot of saturated fat, but even olive oil is 8% saturated fat, or I'm sorry, 18% saturated fat. So there's still saturated fat in olive oil. Coconut is the plant that's the highest, so it's really high in saturated fat. Generally, I guess what we've been doing is if their cholesterol levels are low, we say that's totally fine. If they're running into a cholesterol issue, we've been a little bit of standoffish with recommending the coconut oil.
Yeah. And if anybody's ever cooked with coconut oil, it's funny. I mean, it's different than olive oil or grapeseed or grapeseed oil, or so it leaves my food tasting funny. Have you ever cooked with coconut oil, Jen?
No, I've done just coconut milk, but not oils.
Coconut milk.
Yeah, some people are very sensitive to it. I can really not taste it. If my wife's within 50 feet and when I'm cooking with it, she knows exactly what's happening and she says, stop doing it. So but I can't really detect it at all.
The bottom line is we have to have some form of fat, or else we're going to hunt for later. We have to have some form of carbohydrate. Those of you who have tried the South Beach or the Atkins, which is low carb, I'm not sure what you think, but low carb seems to work for people who are insulin resistant. If you have 2 decades of eating crappy food like me, and then you switch over and try to lose weight with a low carbohydrate diet, it might get in because people who don't have, if you have a cell that's supposed to allow sugar in, or allow nutrient in, and it's insulin resistant, all the insulin in the world won't let that cell get sugar, and the cell will get tired. So you'll feel, even with a good diet, you're getting tired, you get irritable, you might be gaining weight. So sometimes by going low carb with people who are on the high end of weight issues, and when they're trying to make a weight change, a lifestyle change, I mean, low carb is okay, but it's not sustainable, and it leads to other things. You have to have. I think people get this hunting reflex. If they don't have what they want for a while, they'll start to look for it. They usually look for it when they're tired. So people like my guys who do 50-hour shifts, or my police officers who swing shift and switch over from first shift to third shift, they'll be grazing like crazy and hunting, and I can't stay away from the chocolate for some reason for the first week of my shift. And I think that leads to problems. So again, it just speaks for the importance of sustainability.
I think with the low carbs, I always say, we'll tell people Atkins diet it's a great way to lose weight. It's a terrible way to manage weight. I think we all know probably we could list off at least 5 people who lost 30 or more pounds that we know with the Atkins diet or low fat diet, or low carb diet. But generally Atkins diet is, we lose 30 pounds until we stop, and then we gain 35. So it's a great way to lose weight, but the goal is not weight loss. The goal is weight management.